Breach! Plasma containment failure! Commander Zolax's warning came half a second too late. The training cannon's magnetic bottle collapsed, and 47 Academy cadets watched a bolt of superheated plasma, the kind that vaporized reinforced hull plating, lance directly toward the observation deck. Sarah Jackson caught it with her bare hand. The emergency klaxons were still winding up when she closed her fingers around the incandescent bolt, her expression shifting from polite attention to mild irritation. The plasma writhed in her grip, throwing shadows across her OSHA certification badge. According to YouTube analytics, 98% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free. So, Sarah said, looking at the glowing sphere pulsing between her fingers like an angry star. Where's your emergency containment unit? This is getting warm. The observation deck exploded into chaos. Emergency shields slammed down 3 seconds too late, cutting the room in half. Cadets scattered in perfect evacuation formation, except they had nowhere to evacuate to because the human was standing between them and the exits, casually holding enough energy to reduce the entire training complex to ionized vapor. Zolax felt his primary and secondary hearts seize in his chest. 40 years. 40 years of teaching advanced weapons theory, and he'd never, not once, seen anyone survive direct plasma contact. The safety briefings were explicit. Plasma breach meant instant vaporization, no injuries to treat, no bodies to recover, just gone. The human was supposed to be gone. Instead, she was squinting at the plasma bolt like it was a particularly confusing piece of cafeteria food. "Commander?" Cadet Kael'thas whispered, his voice cracking. Why isn't she dead?" Another cadet finished. "Why isn't she dead?" Zolax couldn't answer. His translator implant was working. His eyes were processing visual data correctly, but his brain refused to compile the information into anything resembling sense. The human, the inspector from Earth who'd arrived 6 hours ago with a datapad full of incomprehensible safety citations, was holding a plasma bolt, holding it, the same way someone might hold a particularly warm cup of tea. The bolt's temperature readout on his console said 3,400 degrees. The human's biosigns, still broadcasting from her visitor badge, read normal. Core temperature, 37 degrees. Heart rate, 72 beats per minute. Stress indicators, minimal. "Ma'am," Zolax managed, his voice strangled. Please don't move." "I'm not the one who should be worried about moving," Sarah said, shifting her weight. The plasma bolt pulsed brighter, and half the cadets flinched. "Your containment system just failed during a live demonstration with students present. That's..." She glanced at her datapad, somehow still tucked under her other arm. "That's Violation Code 29B, Subsection 4, Inadequate failsafes for high-energy weapon demonstrations." She was citing safety codes, while holding plasma, while every alarm in the facility screamed that everyone in a 40-meter radius should be dead. "Inspector Jackson," Zolax said carefully, the way one might address an unexploded explosive device. "That plasma bolt is rated at 15 megajoules. It should have..." "Vaporized me on contact, yeah, I got that from your safety briefing." Sarah rolled her eyes. The plasma bolt rolled with them, leaving tracers in Zolax's vision. Which, by the way, was 12 minutes long when regulation minimum is 45. Violation code 12A, but we'll get to that. "You're not concerned," Cadet Kael'thas said, his voice climbing toward hysteria, "that you're holding a weapon that could destroy this entire building?" "Oh, I'm very concerned," Sarah corrected. "I'm concerned that your state-of-the-art training facility just had a catastrophic containment failure during a routine demonstration. I'm concerned that your emergency shields deployed 3 full seconds after breach. I'm concerned that I don't see a single emergency containment unit in this room." She lifted the plasma bolt slightly. "But mostly, I'm concerned that this thing is getting heavier and nobody's telling me where to put it down safely." The plasma bolt was getting brighter. Zolax's console confirmed it. The energy signature was increasing, not dissipating. Plasma didn't do that. Plasma couldn't do that. Without magnetic containment, it should be expanding, cooling, dispersing into harmless ionized particles. Instead, it was condensing, stabilizing in a human hand. The emergency containment units, Zilax heard himself say, are in the primary weapons lab, sub-level 3, because plasma breaches in the observation deck are considered impossible. Sarah's expression could have flash-frozen hydrogen. Considered impossible. Right. That's going in my report. She looked at the plasma bolt, then at the 47 cadets pressed against the far wall, then back at Zilax. Okay, new plan. Someone gets me a path to sub-level 3, or I'm just going to keep holding this until someone with actual emergency protocols shows up. You can't, Zilax started. Can't what? Keep holding it? Sarah's laugh had an edge that made Zilax's spines flatten instinctively. Commander, I've been holding it for 90 seconds already. Your safety briefing said plasma contact means instantaneous vaporization. So either your safety briefing is wrong, or, she gestured with her free hand at herself, very clearly not vaporized. We've got a bigger problem than one malfunctioning cannon. The console beside Zilax erupted in priority alerts. Medical teams, security teams, the Academy Commandant's personal command frequency, demanding an immediate situation report. And in the middle of it all, Sarah Jackson stood with a plasma bolt in her hand, her visitor badge slightly crooked, asking the one question that should have been answered before anyone ever fired a weapon in a room full of students. So seriously, where's your emergency containment? Emergency medical to observation deck 7, Zilax barked into his comm, his training finally overriding his paralysis. Catastrophic plasma exposure, priority. Sarah walked toward him. Every survival instinct Zilax had developed over 4 decades of weapons instructions screamed at him to run. The human was closing distance, the plasma bolt pulsing in rhythm with her footsteps, and his console showed the energy signature climbing to 18 megajoules. 20, 22. Belay that, he whispered into the comm. Medical, stand by. Containment team, I need you now. Commander, what's the status of the casualty? Medical dispatch asked. Zilax watched Sarah navigate around a fallen equipment cart, still cradling the plasma bolt. There is no casualty. Confirm. No casualties from plasma breach? Confirmed. The plasma is still active. 3 seconds of dead air. Then, sir, plasma breach protocol requires immediate. I know the protocol, Zilax's voice cracked. Just get me the containment team. The observation deck doors blasted open. Dr. Vexia rushed in at the head of a 6-person containment team, all of them wearing full hazmat suits rated for radiation exposure. They froze in perfect unison when they saw Sarah. Oh, thank God, Sarah said. Are you the hazmat team? Vexia's scanner array was already deployed, sweeping across Sarah in overlapping waves. The physicist's eyes, all 3 of them, widened behind her helmet. Commander Zilax, I'm reading 24.7 megajoules of active plasma energy. Temperature increasing, magnetic containment field non-existent. She looked up from her scanner. How is she? That's what I've been asking, Zilax said. Sarah held out the plasma bolt toward Vexia like a particularly inconvenient package. Here, I assume you have better equipment for this than I do. The entire containment team retreated 3 steps in perfect synchronization. Ma'am, Vexia said carefully, please do not move suddenly. That plasma bolt is now radiating enough energy to breach our emergency shields and destroy the training complex. Yeah, I heard the computer warnings. Sarah's patience was clearly wearing thin, which is exactly why someone needs to take this from me and put it in proper containment. That's literally what containment teams do. We can't just take it from you, Vexia's voice climbed an octave. Direct transfer of unstable plasma without magnetic buffers would what? Kill you instantly? Sarah's eyebrow arched. Join the club. Apparently I was supposed to be dead 2 minutes ago. Vexia's scanner chirped urgently. She stared at the readings, then manually recalibrated the device, then stared again. Human core temperature, 37.1 degrees. Plasma temperature, 3,990 degrees and climbing. Energy transfer rate. She looked up at Sarah with something approaching awe. There is no energy transfer. The plasma is in direct contact with your organic tissue, and there is no heat transfer occurring. Well, it feels pretty warm, Sarah said, like holding a heating pad on high. A heating pad, Vexia repeated weakly. Look, Sarah set her data pad down on a nearby console, carefully because apparently she had priorities. I'm here to inspect your safety protocols. And this catastrophic failure during a student demonstration, this is exactly why Earth requires independent safety audits. Behind them, at least 6 cadets had their personal recording devices out, capturing every second. Zilak saw the footage counter on his console, 17 different video streams already propagating across the Academy network. The council was going to crucify him. Inspector Jackson, Zilax tried. The emergency protocols require... He activated the emergency dampening field. The observation deck hummed as 50 overlapping magnetic fields deployed, designed to disperse plasma energy safely across a distributed network. Sarah didn't even blink. The fields converged on her position and simply stopped. The plasma bolt brightened briefly, then settled back to its steady pulse. The dampening field's energy signature vanished. Did you just try to hit me with a magnetic field? Sarah asked. Yes. Zilax stared at his console. Field strength, 0. Power draw, maximum. The dampening system was pumping out enough electromagnetic force to deflect a meteor strike, and it was vanishing into Sarah like water into sand. Without warning me first? Sarah's expression darkened. That's assault in most jurisdictions. Also, violation code 18F. Unauthorized use of electromagnetic weapons on inspection personnel. It wasn't meant as a weapon, Vexia said, her scanners going haywire. It was meant to disperse the plasma safely. Instead, She gestured helplessly at her readings. You're absorbing the field energy, unconsciously. The plasma bolt is using your body's bioelectric field as a containment matrix. My what as a what? You're not holding the plasma, Vexia said, her voice filled with horrified fascination. You're containing it. Actively, your body is generating a magnetic containment field stronger than our emergency systems. Sarah looked at the plasma bolt in her hand. The plasma bolt looked back, if such things could look. Huh, she said. Is that bad? Bad? Cadet Kael'thas's voice was barely a whisper. That's impossible. The energy requirements alone... Vexia was frantically calculating on her secondary scanner. To maintain that level of magnetic containment would require a power source equivalent to a Class 7 reactor core. You're doing it with biological processes. Can we focus? Sarah's voice cut through the rising hysteria. Can someone please just get me a secure container? I have 12 more facilities to inspect today, and I'm already behind schedule because your routine demonstration tried to kill 47 students. The observation deck doors opened again. Admiral Jotaro entered, flanked by 3 senior commanders, all of them in full combat armor despite being in the heart of the Academy's safest sector. They stopped. Stared. The Admiral's threat assessment visor cycled through 3 different scanning modes before settling on flashing red. Zilax, the Admiral said slowly, why is the human inspector holding an active plasma bolt? Sir, Zilax said, I have no idea. Sarah held up the glowing sphere. Hi, Sarah Jackson, Earth Safety Administration. Your facility is currently in violation of approximately, she glanced at her datapad, 47 safety codes, and that's just from the first 20 minutes. The Admiral's combat armor's threat assessment system began screaming. The sound echoed in the suddenly silent observation deck, a steady wail that matched the terror in every alien face. Sarah sighed. Is that really necessary? I'm just trying to do my job. The plasma bolt pulsed brighter, now radiating 28 megajoules. On every console in the room, the Academy's safety systems, 5,000 years without a single false alarm, displayed the same message in flashing red text. Unknown threat. Evacuation recommended. Unknown threat. Phase 3. System breakdown. Admiral Jotaro had commanded orbital bombardments. He'd walked through hull breaches in hard vacuum. He'd negotiated ceasefires with species that communicated through biochemical warfare. None of that prepared him for watching a human juggle a plasma bolt. Sarah had transferred the glowing sphere from her right hand to her left, then back again, the motion smooth and absent-minded. "Sorry," she said, noticing everyone staring. "It helps me think." Now where was I? Right. Inadequate safety barriers. "She's juggling it," one of the commanders whispered. "I can see that," Jotaro said, his voice carefully level. He activated his command channel. "Situation assessment. I need options. All of them." His tactical officer's voice crackled back immediately. "Sir, we have 4 expert recommendations. Weapons Division says stabilize the plasma field. Medical says evacuate all personnel. Engineering says neutralize the energy signature. Security says eliminate the threat," Jotaro finished grimly. "Yes, sir." "And which option do we implement?" Silence. Then, "Sir, all 4 recommendations directly contradict each other. Stabilization requires proximity. Evacuation requires distance. Neutralization could destabilize. Elimination would..." The tactical officer's voice failed. "Would detonate enough plasma to vaporize 6 city blocks," Jotaro said. He looked at Sarah, who was now holding the plasma bolt up to the light, examining it like a gemstone. "Belay all recommendations. We're in uncharted territory." "Admiral," Sarah said, not looking away from the plasma, "I appreciate the military response, but I'm just here about your inadequate safety barriers and outdated warning labels. This whole situation could have been prevented with proper..." "Your hand," Vexia interrupted, her scanner array trembling. "Your hand temperature is 34.2 degrees. The plasma is 4,100 degrees. The plasma is inside your thermal envelope, and you're cooler than your baseline temperature." Sarah glanced at her hand. "Huh, is that weird? Thermodynamically impossible." Vexia's professional composure cracked completely. "Heat flows from hot to cold, always. That's not a law, that's not a theory. That's the fundamental nature of reality." "Oh, this is plasma?" Sarah's expression shifted to recognition. "Like welding plasma? We use this for cutting metal back home. You really need better containment seals on your equipment if it's leaking this easily." Zillax felt something fundamental break inside his worldview. "Inspector, we don't use plasma for welding. Plasma at this temperature is a weapons-grade energy source. It's restricted to military applications under Galactic Council Mandate 7743A. "You're teaching kids with weapons-grade equipment?" Sarah's voice went dangerously flat. "And you don't use it for welding?" She shifted the plasma bolt to one hand and pulled out her datapad with the other. "Okay, let me find the right code. That's gross negligence, possibly criminal negligence." "We teach weapons theory," Zillax protested weakly. "It's a military academy." "Then why?" Sarah gestured at the observation deck, somehow making the gesture sharp despite holding a ball of contained death. "Is your observation barrier made of material rated for kinetic impact only? See that?" She pointed at the far wall. "That's a Class 3 polymer composite, rated for projectile weapons. You know what it's not rated for? Plasma breach. Also, your emergency shield deployment is 3 seconds too slow. Also, your warning labels are in galactic common only, which excludes 47 registered species that use alternate visual spectrums. Also..." "How?" Cadet Kael'thas interrupted, his voice breaking. "How are you doing that?" "Doing what?" "Holding it. We learned. Commander Zillax spent 4 weeks teaching us that plasma contact means instant death. No exceptions. It was on the final exam." Zillax felt 40 years of teaching methodology collapse like a failed containment field. He'd taught thousands of cadets, given hundreds of demonstrations, written 3 textbooks on energy weapon safety. The foundational principle, the first lesson every cadet learned, was that plasma kills on contact. Instantly, always, no exceptions. Sarah Jackson was an exception. "Commander?" Another cadet's voice, younger, uncertain. "If she can hold it, what else were we wrong about?" "Nothing," Zillax said automatically, then quieter. "Everything. I don't know." "Do you guys have one of those magnetic bottle things?" Sarah asked suddenly. "You know, the containment systems with the nested magnetic fields that create a stable pocket for high-energy plasma? They're pretty standard for industrial plasma applications." Vexia's 3 eyes went perfectly round. "You're describing a Kozlov 7 containment matrix. That technology won't be available for another 15 years. The mathematics aren't even finalized yet." "Really? Huh," Sarah shrugged. "We've been using them since, like, the 2080s. They're in every welding shop on Earth." "Wait, you don't have stable containment for your training weapons?" "Our containment is perfect," Zillax said defensively. 5,000 years without a single. "You just had a containment failure," Sarah said flatly. "During a demonstration, with students present, your containment is not perfect. Your containment is a lawsuit waiting to happen." Admiral Jotaro activated his direct line to High Command. The encryption alone took 3 seconds to establish, enough time for him to watch Sarah casually shift her weight, the plasma bolt moving with her like a trained pet. "High Command, this is Jotaro, Academy Commandant. I have a Category 12 situation." "Define Category 12, Admiral." The voice on the other end was crisp, professional, concerned. "Human is manipulating restricted weapons-grade plasma, bare-handed, in the middle of my training facility with 47 cadets as witnesses." Silence. Then, "Manipulating or surviving contact?" "Both." "Neither. I don't—" Jotaro pinched the bridge of his nose. "She's treating it like industrial equipment. Claims they use it for welding on Earth." "Restricted military plasma for welding." "Yes." "We're convening an emergency council session. Keep the human contained. Don't let her leave the facility. And for the ancestors' sake, don't let her near any actual weapons." Sarah's voice cut across the observation deck. "Restricted? You're teaching kids with this, and it's restricted? Where I'm from, this would shut you down permanently. This is—" She consulted her datapad again. "Oh, that's interesting. This violates 6 different interstellar safety treaties." "Did you know that?" "Inspector Jackson," Jotaro said carefully, "perhaps we should continue this conversation in a more controlled environment." "Great idea. Your office?" "I was thinking the containment lab." "Even better. I want to see your safety equipment anyway." Sarah paused. "Though, if this is how you run your training facilities, I'm not optimistic about your labs." The plasma bolt flared brighter, now radiating 32 megajoules. Every alarm in the facility was screaming. Evacuation orders were propagating across the campus. 300 years of emergency protocols, all activating simultaneously. Sarah looked annoyed. "Okay, you know what? This is getting ridiculous." She held the plasma bolt between both hands. Her expression shifted to concentration, the kind someone might use when trying to remember where they parked. The plasma compressed. Vexia's scanners shrieked. She's increasing the magnetic field density, but there's no source. She's doing it with..." The plasma bolt collapsed from the size of a grapefruit to the size of a marble. Sarah dropped it into her jacket pocket. Every scanner in the room flatlined. The energy signature vanished. The alarms cut off mid-wail. The emergency protocols, uncertain what to do with a threat that had suddenly ceased to exist, flickered and died. "There," Sarah said, brushing her hands together. "Now can we please talk about your safety violations? I have a schedule to keep." Admiral Jotaro stared at her pocket. where a plasma bolt capable of destroying the training complex was now presumably sitting next to her keys and whatever else humans carried in their pockets. "What?" he said slowly. "Did you just do?" "Stabilized it." "Obviously." Sarah pulled out her datapad. "Now, violation code 29B, subsection 4. Sarah tapped her datapad, pulling up a document dense with checkboxes and regulation codes. "Okay, let's start from the top. Galactic Military Academy, Training Facility 7. Inspection date, November 27th, 2185. She looked up at Admiral Jotaro. "You're going to want to sit down for this." "I prefer to stand," Jotaro said stiffly. "Suit yourself." Sarah began scrolling. Violation 1. Inadequate shielding for high-energy demonstrations. Your observation barrier is rated for kinetic impact only. Violation 2. No emergency containment units within immediate response distance. Violation 3. Insufficient hazard warnings for non-common reading species. Violation 4. Emergency shield deployment exceeds maximum allowable response time by 2.7 seconds. Violation 5. "Inspector Jackson," Jotaro interrupted, "I understand you're upset about the containment failure, but—" "Upset?" Sarah looked up, her expression startled. "I'm not upset. I'm working. This is a safety inspection. The containment failure was just— well, it made my job easier, honestly." The observation deck went very quiet. "Easier?" Vexia repeated. "Sure, simulations and documentation only tell you so much." Sarah gestured casually at the still blaring alarms. "You want to know if your safety equipment actually works? You test it under real conditions, active hazard zones, live failures. See what happens when things go wrong." Zillax felt his translator implant glitch. You intentionally exposed yourself to a catastrophic plasma breach to test our safety response?" "Well, yeah. How else would I know if your emergency protocols actually function?" Sarah said it like it was the most obvious thing in the galaxy. "Back home, we call it field testing, much more reliable than theoretical assessments." "You could have died," Cadet Kael'thas said, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah shrugged. "Could have. Didn't. And now I know your safety systems are inadequate. Your response time is too slow, and your emergency containment is stored 3 levels away from your primary hazard zone. That's actionable data." "Actionable," Vexia's scanner clattered to the floor. "You treated a weapons-grade plasma breach as a quality assurance test?" "That's literally my job description." Sarah pulled the marble-sized plasma sphere from her pocket. Several commanders flinched backward. "Also, you'll want this back. Still pretty energetic. I'd say maybe 28-30 megajoules. You should really stabilize it properly before someone gets hurt." She held it out toward Vexia. The physicist didn't move. Couldn't move. Her 3 eyes were locked on the tiny sphere balanced on Sarah's palm, glowing like a miniature sun. "Right," Sarah said after a moment. "You need proper handling procedures." She set the sphere carefully on a nearby equipment cart. "There. Don't touch it without magnetic containment." Admiral Jotaro watched the most dangerous object in the facility sitting casually on a cart like someone's forgotten lunch. "Inspector Jackson, how many violations did you find?" Sarah consulted her datapad. "Currently at 147. But I've only inspected this one training room. The full facility audit will probably triple that." 147 violations. Minimum. Some of these are serious enough that on Earth, this facility would be shut down immediately. No appeals, no grace period. Doors locked until every violation is corrected and independently verified. "We've operated for 5,000 years, Zillax said, his voice hollow. 5,000 years without a major incident." "You've had 3 containment breaches this year alone," Sarah said, reading from her datapad. "Logged in your maintenance records, minor plasma leaks, you called them." Zillax froze. Those breaches had been classified. internal reports only. How did you... Your safety inspector has access to all relevant documentation. It's in the inspection agreement your commandant signed. Sarah's expression hardened. 3 minor breaches. Do you know what we call minor plasma breaches on Earth? What? Zillax asked weakly. Major disasters. Any plasma leak is a containment failure. Any containment failure is a catastrophic risk. Your minor breach in July? According to your own logs, that released enough plasma to compromise a storage room, if anyone had been in that room. But no one was, Zillax said. This time. Sarah's voice cut like a laser. You write your safety protocols assuming everything works perfectly. Humans write protocols assuming everything fails catastrophically. Because equipment does fail, containment does breach, and when it does, people shouldn't die because you didn't plan for the obvious. The obvious, Admiral Jotaro repeated slowly. The pieces were falling into place, not forming a picture he liked, but one he couldn't ignore. You're saying our entire safety philosophy is fundamentally flawed. I'm saying your safety philosophy assumes plasma contact equals death, so you didn't bother planning for what happens when someone survives contact. Sarah pulled up a schematic on her datapad. Look at your barrier design. It's optimized to prevent plasma from reaching the observation deck, but there's no secondary containment if the primary fails, no emergency suppression, no backup barriers. You built one perfect defense and assumed it would never fail. It hadn't failed in 5,000 years, Zillax protested, until today, when it failed with 47 students watching. Sarah's expression softened slightly. Look, I get it. Your technology is impressive, your containment fields are sophisticated, but sophisticated doesn't mean infallible. You need redundancy, backup systems, emergency protocols that assume the primary system failed. Vexia had retrieved her scanner and was running calculations. If we implemented redundant containment, layered magnetic barriers with independent power sources, emergency suppression fields triggered by pressure sensors rather than active monitoring. She looked up at Sarah. You're describing a complete redesign of our safety architecture. I'm describing basic magnetic field management, Sarah said. She walked to the damaged plasma cannon, examining the breach point. See this? Your containment bottle uses a single-layer magnetic matrix. If I were designing this, she pulled out a stylus and began sketching on her datapad. I'd use nested fields, 3 layers minimum. Each layer monitors the others. If one fails, the others compensate automatically. Plus, pressure release valves here and here, so energy buildup doesn't cascade into catastrophic failure. The cadets crowded closer, watching Sarah redesign systems their professors had spent careers perfecting. She worked quickly, annotating the schematic with notes that made Vexia's eyes widen progressively further. That's a Kozlov 7 matrix variant, Vexia breathed, with active feedback compensation. We theorized this was possible, but the computational requirements are minimal if you use analog magnetic sensors instead of digital monitoring, Sarah finished. Faster response time, too, no processing lag. She'd redesigned 5,000 years of weapon safety protocols in 20 minutes. Using what she called basic magnetic field management, Admiral Jotaro made a decision. Implementation Authorization Code Jotaro 77 Alpha. All of Inspector Jackson's safety recommendations are to be implemented immediately. Full facility retrofit, no delays. Sir, one of the commanders protested, the cost is irrelevant compared to the cost of vaporizing 47 cadets. Jotaro looked at Sarah. Inspector, I apologize. We treated your inspection as a formality. Clearly, it was necessary. Sarah nodded, already updating her datapad. I'll need access to your other training facilities. If this room had 147 violations, I'm betting the others are similar. You'll have full access, full cooperation. Jotaro activated his command channel, and I need to update High Command. The message he sent was brief. Human durability assessment inconclusive. Human deliberately exposed herself to plasma, breach as inspection methodology. Survived without injury through means still unexplained. Human safety standards assessment, humbling. Our 5,000-year-old protocols are inadequate by Earth standards. Immediate facility-wide retrofit authorized. Request human safety consultation for all military training operations. Recommendation: stop treating humans as curiosities. Start treating their safety standards as survival requirements. The response came back in seconds. Request approved. Do whatever the human says. 3 days later, Sarah stood in the newly retrofitted training room, watching Zelax demonstrate the updated containment system. Triple-layer magnetic barriers hummed softly, each layer independently powered and monitored. Pressure release valves glinted at strategic points. Emergency containment units, 6 of them, lined the walls within arm's reach. Sarah checked her datapad, comparing the setup against her specifications. Frowned. Walked to the primary barrier emitter and tapped a connection port. This junction is still single-threaded, she said. If the primary power coupling fails, the whole array goes down. Zelax's spines drooped. We reinforced it to military specifications. Which means it'll fail less often, not that it can't fail. Sarah made a note. You need a bypass circuit here, here, and here. Also, your emergency shutdown is still on a 3-second delay. We reduced it from 5 seconds. Congratulations, it's still too slow. Sarah looked up from her datapad. But at least you tried. This is way better than 3 days ago. Way better, Zelax repeated. We completely redesigned a system that took centuries to develop. And now it might actually keep people alive when it fails. Sarah marked the violations, only 3 this time, and moved to the next checkpoint. Inspector Jackson, Zelax said carefully, may I ask you something? Sure. How did humans become so casually durable around hazards? Is it evolution, genetic modification, some kind of... Sarah laughed, actually laughed, the sound echoing in the observation deck. Durable? Commander, we're fragile as hell. That's why we're paranoid about safety. Zelax's translator hiccuped. I'm sorry, fragile. You survived direct plasma contact. Yeah, and that was terrifying. Sarah's expression sobered. Look, I survived because I've spent 15 years training for worst-case scenarios. I've done live-fire safety inspections in fusion plants, chemical facilities, antimatter storage. You know why? Because humans know we're fragile. We die easy, so we assume everything will fail catastrophically, and we prepare for it. You plan for failure, Vexia said, appearing from the laboratory section. Not just probability of failure, certainty of failure. Exactly. Sarah pulled up a schematic on her datapad. See this? Standard Earth plasma containment. We assume the primary field will fail, so there's a secondary. We assume the secondary will fail, so there's a tertiary. We assume all 3 will fail simultaneously, so there's emergency venting, suppression systems, and evacuation protocols. We design for the day when everything goes wrong at once. Because you're fragile, Zelax said slowly, understanding dawning. Because we're fragile, Sarah confirmed. You built your systems assuming competence and reliability. We build ours assuming incompetence and catastrophic bad luck. Guess which philosophy keeps more people alive? Vexia's 3 eyes were bright with something approaching evangelical fervor. Inspector Jackson, would you be willing to consult on our entire academy redesign? Not just this facility, all of them. Weapons training, flight operations, reactor management, everything. I can send you our OSHA manual, Sarah offered. It's only 40,000 pages. Well, that's the abbreviated version. The full regulatory framework is closer to 200,000. 200,000 pages, Vexia repeated faintly, of safety regulations. Just the federal ones. Individual states add their own requirements. Sarah grinned at Vexia's expression. Welcome to human safety culture. We're very thorough. In the observation deck, a young cadet raised her hand tentatively. Inspector, do humans ever just trust their equipment? Like, assume it'll work correctly? Sarah turned to face the class. Trust? Kid, I don't trust my coffee maker to not catch fire. That's why I unplug it every single time I'm done using it. And it's just a coffee maker. It doesn't contain plasma hot enough to vaporize a building. But that's exhausting, another cadet protested. Always assuming failure, always planning for disasters. You know what's more exhausting? Dying. Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. Yeah, it's paranoid. Yeah, it's excessive, but I go home every night. My coworkers go home. The people in the facilities I inspect go home. That's worth a little paranoia. Admiral Jotaro entered, carrying a datapad that practically glowed with priority tags. Inspector Jackson, I have news. High Command has issued a galaxy-wide directive. All facilities expecting human attendance must meet Earth safety standards within 6 months. 6 months? Sarah looked skeptical. That's ambitious. We're motivated, especially after your inspection report reached the Council. Jotaro pulled up a galactic map. Red indicators covered 73% of the marked facilities. These are our military training installations. Nearly 3/4 are now flagged for major safety violations by Earth standards. Sounds about right, Sarah said, unsurprised. We thought we were safe. We thought 5,000 years of incident-free operation meant our systems were perfect. Jotaro's expression was rueful. We were confusing lucky with safe. Common mistake, Sarah said. She began packing her inspection gear, scanner array, sample containers, the ever-present datapad. Anyway, I've got another facility to inspect, asteroid mining operation, in Sector 7. The one where the atmosphere processors keep failing? Zilax asked. That's the one. Apparently their redundant safety systems aren't actually redundant. Just the same system installed twice. Sarah shook her head. Should be fun. She paused, reaching into her jacket pocket. Oh, almost forgot. She pulled out the marble-sized plasma sphere, still glowing faintly. You really should stabilize this properly. The magnetic compression I used is temporary. Maybe another week before it starts degrading. She held it out to Vexia. The physicist approached like she was defusing a bomb, full hazmat suit sealed, magnetic containment unit held at maximum extension. She accepted the sphere with elaborate care, triple-checking the containment fields before allowing the transfer. Sarah was already walking toward the exit, sipping from a coffee thermos. Inspector, Vexia called after her, the plasma sphere now safely in its magnetic cradle. How did you learn to do that? The compression technique? Sarah paused at the doorway. YouTube tutorial, I think? Or maybe it was a community college night class. I forget. She waved. Good luck with the retrofit. The door closed behind her. The observation deck was silent for a long moment. Then Cadet Kael'thas said very quietly, Did she just say she learned to compress weapons-grade plasma from an educational video? I think, Zilax said, we have fundamentally misunderstood humans. Galactic Military Academy. Incident Report. 7743. Subject, Catastrophic Containment Breach, Training Facility. 7 human casualties, 0 alien casualties, 0 physical, 47 psychological paradigm collapse. Facility, status, failed inspection. Headline, Human Safety Inspector survives catastrophic containment breach, fails facility inspection. Recommendation, implement all human safety protocols immediately, except that our definition of safe was dangerously inadequate. Sarah's comm chirped as she headed toward the transport bay. Her assistant's voice crackled through. How'd the follow-up inspection go? Yeah, same as usual, Sarah said, dodging a group of cadets who stared at her like she was a walking miracle. They're shocked I didn't die. I'm shocked they haven't killed anyone yet. Anyway, heading to lunch. Want me to grab you something from that noodle place you like? Please. And Sarah? Yeah? Try not to catch any more plasma bolts with your bare hands. The insurance paperwork is ridiculous. Sarah laughed. No promises. You know how these inspections go. She disconnected, took another sip of coffee, and headed toward whatever catastrophically inadequate safety system awaited her next. Just another day in the office.